What up? I'm Me, and welcome to my channel where we talk about all things true crime and current events. Today is a bonus upload of a video type that I like to call Crafty Crimes, where you and I sit down together, talk about something related to the true crime world, and we do a little crocheting together. Today, we are going to be talking about Greg Jackson, aka Onision. He started YouTube in 2006 and he has multiple channels all across his platform, but his three biggest ones are the Onision'S Speaks channel that has 1.61 million subscribers, the Onision channel that has 2.06 million subscribers, and the Uh-Oh Bro channel that has 1.98 million subscribers. He is currently 34 years old, and for the past few years, there have been plenty of people making videos talking about him, trying to bring some of his disturbing behavior to light, and really just trying to encourage people to stop enabling this behavior and trying to get YouTube to finally do something. Some of the things that people have talked about in their videos are just his weird behaviors, such as being so obsessed with Shane Dawson, talking about Shane's weight, constantly bringing up the fact that he was Shane's first gay kiss. Just a weird obsession with him. He's also been audited by the IRS for tax fraud. He destroyed a bunch of wetlands behind his house in Washington, and he ended up having to go to court with the state in order to make that right. He makes tons of weird videos, most notably one where he was telling Black women how they should be caring for their hair, which I have no words for that, but so if you're Black and you're having trouble, you don't know the best products to use, hit up Onision, because as a white male with a completely different texture of hair, he knows what's best. However, more seriously, he is known for having multiple forums where people can talk and there's different threads, and he encouraged younger girls to send him pictures so that way he could rate their bodies. And he would tell them to write Onision on their arms, on their bodies somewhere. And these were very young girls, so it's very creepy. Obviously, you have no way of knowing the age of many of the people who submit these photos, but one girl did in fact come forward and talk about saying this is my little sister, she is under the age of 18, I don't want her on this website, you need to take her down, and he wouldn't. So that's a very creepy thing that he does. And something else that he is just known for is these weird abusive relationships where he is highly manipulative and controlling, and they are often with young girls. So people have been making videos about these disturbing behaviors for multiple years, and recently Chris Hansen of To Catch a Predator fame, the OG of stopping creeps, started a YouTube channel. It is called Have a Seat with Chris Hansen, and he has started interviewing some of Onision's most vocal adversaries like Blair White and Mr. Repzion, as well as interviewing some of the survivors of Onision's abuse. So now the cause is really picking up steam. It's getting a lot of attention, I think especially because Chris Hansen is a member of the mainstream media. He's from traditional media, and so he has polls that regular people on YouTube might not have. Now, these interviews that he does, they're incredible. He has the people who have survived Onision's manipulation and abuse come on. They tell their story. He asks them questions to get clarification, and it's really great. However, I've noticed that there is a lot of overlap. This whole situation is just complex. It spans over a decade, and it can be kind of confusing. And I wanted clarification. So that's what we're going to do. We are going to take a look at Onision, his relationships, his partners. We're not necessarily going to get into the nitty-gritty of the horrible things that he did to all of these young ladies, but we are going to talk about a general overview in a linear fashion of what the past few years of his life have looked like. To give you a little bit of backstory, Onision, when he was still going by Greg, because that is his name, in 2003, he began dating his first wife, Sky. He was 18 and she was 17. The following year, in 2004, is when Sky's younger sister claims that she was at a party, she had been drinking, and Onision sat down next to her and attempted to kiss her. She did not want any part of it, and she ended up turning away from him, getting up, and walking across the room to get back to her friend so that she wouldn't have to be alone with him. In 2005, Greg joined the US Air Force, and a few months later, he proposed to Sky. They ended up getting married in August of that year. Sky's family was not really supportive of the marriage. Her mom, especially, was just really concerned about the anger that Greg showed towards her daughter, and she just, she warned her to be careful. And when Greg heard about this, he was not happy. He had this blog at the time, and he went onto the blog and was posting about, how she should mind her own business, and she doesn't really know what she's talking about. And the only reason he gets mad at Sky is because he's trying to teach her a lesson. The only reason they fight and he gets angry is because he's helping her. Another odd thing is during their marriage, Onision would encourage Sky to keep her hair in a short haircut, and he was just weird and controlling. At one point, he told her that she needed to wear shorts every time she wore a skirt because otherwise she was at a high risk of being raped. So that's not concern. That is being controlling and just being weird about it. Now, in 2006, Greg created his Onision channel. He didn't start posting until 2007. He was still keeping up with his blog, and he made a post talking about how he didn't like Sky's friends because they were trying to get in the way of their relationship. He said that they had concerns about the way that he was treating her, and so they just kind of approached Sky about it, and they were trying to talk to her, and he didn't like that. He said that they were trying to damage their relationship, trying to get in the way of it, and he said that, potentially in the future, we're just going to have to hang out with family and maybe even some work friends, possibly. So time keeps going on, and in 2008, Greg was discharged from the US Air Force, and he really started heavily focusing on YouTube, and this is when Sky ended up getting a job outside of the home to support both herself and Onision as he tried to make it on the internet, essentially. In 2009, Onision created the video I'm a Banana, and in early 2010, it ended up going viral because it was featured on the TV show Tosh.0, and this is when things really started kicking off for him. That video now has over 77 million views. This is when Onision and Shiloh met. So Shiloh saw some of his videos. She liked his content. She felt that where she was at in her life, she could relate to him. She was 17 at the time. She was living in Canada. She was in the midst of her own very successful career for music. She was touring, doing multiple projects. She had a lot going for her, and I think that maybe Greg kind of saw that, Onision saw that, and that's why he decided to start talking to her. They quickly developed a friendship, and soon they were talking on Skype for up to 10 hours per day. This is when Sky and Onision really start having problems because he is spending so much time talking to Shiloh, and Greg, Onision, threatens to divorce her for the first time. So in December of that year, they did end up separating, and he told Shiloh that he loved her. He was 25 at the time, and she was 17. A few days after this, he hand wrote out a divorce contract for Sky to sign, and she ended up signing it. However, it would later be deemed inadmissible in court because she clearly signed it under duress. I mean, can you imagine? You've been married for over 5 years, you think everything's good, your husband's a little strange, but for the most part, you guys are good, and now he's divorcing you for a 17-year-old. That's horrifying. But a few days after he presented the divorce contract to Sky, he ended up going to Pennsylvania to meet up with Shiloh. She was there for work, and he flew out to meet her, and they had sex almost immediately. She said within like 5 minutes of him walking in the room. Immediately. Something important to note is that the age of consent in Pennsylvania is 16, so no laws were broken. However, the hotel ended up contacting the police about this because they were concerned, and Greg had traveled with a bunch of filming equipment because he's a YouTuber, he films a lot of stuff. He's always on the camera, and so they ended up calling the authorities, and they came, searched his computer. They were looking for child pornography, which thankfully they did not find, and no further legal action was taken. In 2011, Onision ended up moving to Canada, and he and Shiloh moved in together, and this is where things really started to go downhill. He would lock her out of certain rooms in the house, and he wouldn't let her go into them. Specifically, one of the rooms that he was locking her out of was the editing room, so she couldn't go in there. And then sometimes when he would allow her in, he would let her come and sleep on the floor next to him while he was editing, so that way if at some point during the editing process he needed to be pleasured, he could wake her up and she could service him. He also encouraged her to get a tattoo with his name, which she did end up getting, and he was supposed to get one with her name on it, and instead he just got one that said, "Remember Love." In June of that year, Shiloh ended up having a grand mal seizure, and she believes that this was due to the stress of everything that was going on. Onision was very controlling, he was very manipulative, he was very critical, always causing fights, and this particular fight was he had called her clinically obese because he couldn't lift her up during sex. So they get into this big fight, and she just kind of starts breaking down. She's in the shower, she's hyperventilating, she's freaking out, and she ended up having a seizure. And instead of calling an ambulance or taking her to the hospital, Onision decided to film it and later include it in a video talking about how Shiloh had a seizure, and the title of the video was "Shiloh Forgot Me." And he basically showed footage of it and talked about how she had suffered some memory loss after the seizure. A few weeks later, Onision and Shiloh were having sex, and she claims that he, in the midst of this, took her into the bathroom and shaved her head against her will. The next month, they broke up, and Shiloh moved out, and Onision ended up going to LA to live with his friend Cyr. During that time, Onision was claiming that Shiloh was mentally unstable, and so he called the authorities on her, and they ended up taking her into a mental health facility for treatment. And he was posting about all of this stuff. Honestly, I don't know what he was thinking, but a lot of people were sympathizing with Shiloh, and so he took a lot of the content down that was related to the situation. And during this time, he was sending multiple emails to his ex-wife, Sky, telling her that he didn't expect her to take him back, but he made a mistake. Shiloh was a mistake. I miss you. Just a bunch of crap. She didn't respond to many of those emails, but eventually they did end up talking, and while they didn't get back together, they ended up on good terms. In August of that year, Onision entered into a secret relationship with a YouTuber by the name of Hannah Minx, and a few weeks later he posted a video about their breakup, even though people did not know that they were dating. It was around the same time that Onision's current partner, Kai, started to take notice of Onision. And here's just kind of a side note. Kai was born a female, originally went by Taylor, then by Lainey, and is now going by Kai and identifies as a male. So at this time, Kai was going by Lainey. For the sake of keeping things clear and as unconfusing as possible, I am going to refer to Kai as Kai throughout the video, not using Kai's former names. And I'm also going to use the pronoun they or them for them because, I just don't want it to be confusing, and I want to be as respectful as I can while still acknowledging the fact that this person is committing crimes. So that's what we're using. And at this time, when Kai started noting Onision, Kai was 16 years old. In the same month, Onision began dating a girl named Adrienne, and Adrienne was 26 at the time. So according to her, she was just drawn to Onision for some unexplainable reason. She was just fascinated by him, but she had a very low tolerance for his antics. She's a grown woman, and so their relationship did not last long. After the breakup, Onision decided to get back together with Shiloh, and they made videos together talking about how Adrienne was dirty and he falsely claimed that she gave him STDs. Sometime later, Shiloh became pregnant, and unfortunately, she did lose the baby. Onision would not pay for medical treatment. They were planning on using a midwife throughout this pregnancy. So when she lost the baby, typically it can pass by itself, but in a lot of cases, you will need to go to a hospital, to a doctor, in order to get a procedure done to remove the fetus. Onision was not about to pay for that. So, because he wouldn't take her, Shiloh soon became very sick, and she ended up having to go back to Canada and get an emergency procedure done. During this time, Onision was consistently reaching out to his ex-wife Skye's younger sister. He was, for some reason, talking to her about Shiloh and asking her to collab. He sent multiple emails to her, but she didn't respond to any of them. This is a common occurrence where he keeps reaching out, keeps trying to talk to her, and she just has no interest in talking to him at all. At this time, Kai is still tweeting at Onision, trying to reach out, expressing their love for him, and he has yet to respond. In 2012, Onision continues drama with Adrienne on Twitter, just saying unnecessarily rude things to her, and continuing to try and make her look like a bad person. And at the same time, he is complaining about having to pay alimony to his ex-wife, Skye. In February, Onision and Shiloh break up for the last time, and Shiloh actually wants Onision back. She wants to get back together with him, but he refuses, which is probably a good thing for her. But it was at this time that Onision took notice of Kai, and they started talking with romantic interest. And he consulted with a lawyer to see if it would be legal to pursue a romantic relationship with Kai. In March, he proposed to Kai over Skype, and then eventually flew down to New Mexico to meet Kai. And he was there on and off for the next few months. And during this time, Kai's family thought that they were living in a college dorm room, but they were actually living in the house that Onision had rented. And something that is important to note is that this took place in New Mexico, where the legal age of consent is 18. Kai is 17 at this time. And throughout the first few months of them living together on and off, Onision is 26, eventually turning 27. So they lived together on and off. Eventually, in November, Kai turned 18, and then they went behind Kai's family's back and got married and moved to Washington. In April, somebody ended up sending Kai's family a letter about Onision, telling them just some disturbing things, talking about why he is not a good person and why basically they should be concerned with Onision being with their child. And Onision made a video about it. He was obviously not happy. He implied that it was Mr. Repzion because even back in 2013, Repsion was doing the Lord's work and trying to get the word out about how this dude is not a good person. However, Repsion said that he did not send that letter, and I don't know, he's been very open about his disdain for Onision, so I think that Repsion is a reliable source, and if he says he didn't send it, I'm inclined to believe him. In June of that same year, Kai announced that they were pregnant with their first child. At this point, Kai is 19 and Onision is about to be 28. In 2014, Kai is still with Onision, but they started tweeting with a girl named Sarah, who was 14 at the time. They kind of developed an online friendship, but the tweets and texts back and forth were kind of flirty, kind of romantic, not necessarily indicating an actual romantic relationship, but it had that vibe. It had that feeling of flirting back and forth, being attracted to each other. In 2015, the friendship between Sarah and Kai continues, and Kai actually makes a bad joke about how they are grooming Sarah. In August of that same year, Sarah turned 15, and the messages between the two of them end up getting a little bit more romantically motivated, and they could be taken a lot more seriously because Kai is talking about how they're going to be kissing Sarah when Sarah turns 18. Kai turned 21 the following month. In November, Kai started speaking with Billie, who was 18 at the time, and they entered into somewhat of a romantic flirtationship. In December, Billie went to go visit Kai and Onision, and the intention was that it was just going to be Billie and Kai having a romantic relationship, and it seemed like Onision was in support of that and encouraging them. However, in 2016, Kai and Billie broke up, as well as Kai and Onision, and they claimed that this was because Onision had cheated on Kai with Billie. So this whole thing breaks up because Kai was looking to have a relationship outside of the marriage with Billie, and then Onision ended up being romantically interested in Billie as well. They were all in this little love mashup, and Kai was upset that Onision had cheated with the same girl that Kai was interested in. It's confusing, I know. Moving on. Later that month, Onision and Kai get back together. They say that they are going to go into marriage counseling, and their separation ends. It is that same month that Onision proposes the idea of bringing Sarah into their home under the guise of guardianship. A few months later, in June, Billie came back to visit and engaged in a three-way relationship with Kai and Onision. In September of that year, Sarah turned 16 and went to go visit Onision and Kai, and they claim that this was for guardianship, that they, things weren't great at Sarah's home, come live with us, we'll take care of you, you're our friend, whatever, but it really did seem like there was romantic interest lying underneath that. And at this time, when Sarah came out to visit, both Kai and Onision were still engaging in a romantic relationship with Billie. In November, Onision began texting a young woman named Haley, and Haley had been engaged in a friendship with Kai. She had tweeted Kai that she was wearing their merch, and so Kai took notice of her. They started talking, chatting, and apparently Kai developed feelings for Haley. So Onision starts texting Haley, trying to convince her to enter into a three-way relationship with both himself and Kai, but Haley doesn't want to. She's not interested. She politely declines. Onision tries to guilt her into coming out there, coming and visiting, saying like, you're broken, something's wrong with you if you don't want this relationship, you're a lifeboat for us and you're gonna let us drown. Like, come on, this girl's been talking to you for a few weeks. Get real. But so she doesn't fold. She's not interested. She does not want to be in a relationship with him and Kai. It was in December of that year that Onision proposed a contract of sorts to both Billie and Kai, where it was rules for their relationship. And some of the rules were that you must remain positive at all times and you're not allowed to use manipulative language. They both agreed. They supposedly all agreed, but Onision keeps being Onision. Now, early in 2017, Billie and Kai break up, and at this point, Sarah is still living with them, but people are really starting to question the motive and wondering why they have her there. This is when we really start to see the allegations of grooming because Sarah was so young, and during live streams and videos, people just felt like something was off. And it was around the same time that Billie, one of her friends, Onision, Adrian, Kai, they all start fighting on Twitter. They're going back and forth about what really happened in the relationship with Billie. And Onision ends up leaking personal information about her that people would not want shared. And as a result of that, Billie released screenshots showing some of the ridiculous demands that Onision wanted her to meet in order to be forgiven and taken back by them. So it just went on for a while, eventually kind of settling down, and afterwards Onision did contact Billie asking her to forgive him, bringing up his tax problems to her and just like asking her to look at the documents, and he tried to convince her to get back with Kai, saying, I don't have to be part of the relationship, you can just be with Kai, it can just be you two. She did not want that. Throughout 2017, throughout the whole year, Sarah is on again, off again, living with Onision and Kai, going back and forth. And in August, she turned 17. And at this point, Kai is 23 and Onision is 32. It's so weird. It's so weird, dude. So throughout 2018, there doesn't really seem to be anyone else entering into this relationship. Like they're not bringing young girls to their house. They're not bringing any new ones. And that's how it is for all of 2018. In early 2019, this year, the grooming allegations are still going strong. People are very concerned about what happened when Sarah was like living with them, coming to visit. It's just people aren't letting up because they smell that something's going on. Something is wrong. And so Onision tells Sarah to make a video refuting these claims, saying that nothing inappropriate ever happened. They did not groom her. Like, everything's chill, guys. And she was apparently hesitant to do it, but he kept pressuring her and just told her to be an adult about it and make the video. So she did, but we have since seen some of what went on in the clips between what she actually published, and this young woman is just, she doesn't want to make the video. It's incredibly sad to see because you can tell she's distressed about it, but Onision had such a hold on her that she ended up pulling herself together, creating the video, and posting it. In mid-January of 2019, Sarah was visiting Onision and Kai, and they were all watching a movie. Onision and Kai began having sex in front of her and told her to join in. And this is the first for real sexual contact, supposedly, that occurred between Sarah, Onision, and Kai. The next month, she came back to visit, but the intention of that visit was just to end things between them. However, throughout the next few months, she continued to go back and visit, and one of those visits even happened when Kai was in New Mexico visiting family, and during that visit, Sarah and Onision were intimate. In July, Onision broke up with Sarah and started, you guessed it, bashing her on the internet. He claimed that she was unreliable, that she had BPD, and just was basically talking poorly about her in multiple ways to anyone who would listen. And this is when Sarah started fighting back. She revealed her side of the story, and she even showed a text message where Onision had claimed that she was blackmailing them, violating a non-disclosure agreement that they apparently had her sign, and he even went so far as to say that Sarah raped Kai. In September, multiple other survivors of Onision's abuse and manipulation came forward to defend Sarah, and this involves his first wife Sky, Sky's younger sister, Shiloh, and Billie. In October of this year, just less than 2 months ago, Chris Hansen created his YouTube channel, Have a Seat with Chris Hansen. And that is what kicked off this really getting some attention. So one of Chris's most recent streams was with Billie. And Billie was so incredibly respectful in this interview. Despite the fact that she had been through some really horrible, manipulative, just mean treatment, she was incredibly respectful. She did not, because you know how sometimes interviewers will ask you something, like giving you the opportunity to kind of bump up the story and make bigger claims. You know, Chris Hansen said, you know, would you consider this a cult? And she said, I don't know, like I wouldn't know much about cults, but I think there are some cult-like tendencies. It felt kind of weird. You know, she did not jump up and say, oh, yep, she didn't, you know what I mean? She was very respectful. She stuck to what her story was. And she even did her best to refer to Kai as their proper pronouns and names, even though she knew Kai as Lainey when they first met. However, Onision was not happy that she went on this interview and started tweeting a lot of stuff about her and like tweeting out photos of different conversations that they had. And I don't know why he chose the ones that he chose, because they made him look really bad. They just supported what we all thought, that he was controlling and creepy. And yeah, they just like, one of them included conditions that she would have to meet in order to be forgiven, like buying everybody in the house a present, writing them a letter, writing, you know, putting a Christmas bow on the trees in the backyard, just weird stuff. But anyway, in one of those photos, he included Billie's phone number. He released her personal phone number to the world, which is, of course, doxing. This resulted in some action finally being taken against this predator, and that was that Patreon decided to remove his page from their website. Before this happened, Onision had at least 560 patrons paying at least $5 a month, so that's an immediate loss of $2,800, which that's going to make an impact. $2,800 a month, and you take down that channel, that's going to significantly affect somebody. A lot of people were in shock. They were like, is this real? Did you really take it down? Is it going to stay down? You know, can we celebrate that some justice is finally being served up to this man who is abusive? Like, people were just, they didn't want to celebrate too early. And according to Patreon, doxing somebody is a violation of their bullying and harassment policy as laid out in their community guidelines. You're not allowed to use any funds from Patreon to release personal information. So, gone. They shut it down. They deleted it. Since then, Onision has posted several short clips on his channel on YouTube, appearing to have a mental breakdown. He's posted these videos where he's talking about, you took my Patreon down, and he's like screaming and smiling and crying and screaming and angry, and the switch is horrifying. It's crazy. He even poured a whole bottle of kombucha on himself and was like, are you happy now? Like, just crazy videos. People are saying like, he's probably doing this for an insanity plea. And I can't say that I disagree, because if he goes to court, maybe that could be useful. Maybe that could help. I don't know. And going to court might be something that he legitimately has to worry about, because on that stream with Billie, Chris Hansen revealed that he had contacted the FBI, and they were very interested in hearing what he had to say and looking into this matter further, because, so basically, because of the ages of some of the people that Onision had relationships with, both himself and Kai, they were underaged. And if there were any sexually explicit photographs sent back and forth, that is, of course, child pornography. Doesn't matter if it's consensual, if the younger person sent it to the older person, whatever, it's child pornography. So we could be looking into an investigation into that, as well as bringing girls up to Washington or going to different states to engage in sexual activity with them. Chris Hansen brought up a good point. He said that could be considered sex trafficking, which is insane. I don't ever want to enjoy someone's downfall, but Onision has been so damaging to so many young women that, man, if he got convicted of sex trafficking, that would just be something else. But so that is where we are at. Chris Hansen also said that he has been trying to reach out to YouTube. He's got the same concern as many other creators have about why do we get punished and kicked out of the algorithm and people don't see our videos, you don't promote it because we're talking about predators and trying to bring awareness to these predators. Yet, at the same time, the person who is committing the crimes, who's being the creep, who is hurting people, continues to be fine, continues to get, have all these subscribers. His views aren't that great compared to how many subscribers he has, but there's not been any action taken against him. So Chris Hansen has been reaching out to YouTube, and supposedly they are going to get back to him later this week with kind of an overview on their policy and what their approach is in handling people of this nature. So hopefully we will get some answers on that, and we will actually get more people taking this seriously, actually doing the diligence into looking into his history, because it is not hard to see that he has harmful behavior. And now that we've got someone from traditional media bringing attention to him, I've seen a few articles about him, like actual mainstream articles talking about what's happening, what's going on, and hopefully we will be able to see something done about this. That is the overview. Hopefully that gives some clarity on the timeline of everything. If you want the details of the relationship, I would encourage you to go watch Have a Seat with Chris Hansen, listen to these young women and their stories. Like I said, they are incredibly brave for being on a live stream, talking about what happened to them and how they survived, and I think supporting them, watching it, sharing it, that would be great. So go ahead and do that, and leave me a comment below. Let me know what you think is going to happen, if you believe that we are actually going to see some justice, or just what your prediction is. Let me know in a comment below, and while you're doing that, I would love it if you would like this video or subscribe to my channel. And if you have subscribed already, thank you so much. I am so appreciative of you, and I love being able to just sit here, hang out, and talk about whatever. All that being said, I'm going to go ahead and let you go. Thank you so much for watching, and remember to go out there and be the voice of reason in a world full of crazy. Bye.